Ciao Terry, buonasera. Reflexive pronoun with a verb. I'm going to read the question and I'm going to give you a quick solution. Sì, lo so, i verbi riflessivi sono abbastanza complicati, ma io ho la soluzione. Yes, reflexive verbs. Got a great question from Terry. Bring it up. From beginner Italian level 2. Ciao Terry, buonasera. Reflexive pronoun with a verb. I'm going to read the question and I'm going to give you a quick solution. How do we know when to use the reflexive pronoun with a verb not among the common reflexive verbs, as in the ones that you usually study? For example, the two sentences below are not the best usage, but I'm not clear why. Dopo mi faccio colazione. Later I'll make myself breakfast. E ci parliamo spesso. We talk to each other often. So, for what I understand of your question, the main thing is, how do we know, basically, okay? So, it's a tricky one. It's a really tricky one. But here's the real question that I want you to ask yourself, and everybody else ask yourself this question, and that is, how do we know if a verb is reflexive or not? If we can hear non-reflexive verbs used with the reflexive pronoun. What do I mean? Okay, so purely reflexive verbs would be, for example, arrabbiarsi, to get angry, or ricordarsi, to remember, vergognarsi, to feel ashamed. So those are just they are reflexive verbs. It makes sense that we use the reflexive pronoun because they are reflexive verbs. But now, the problem is that in most cases you will hear verbs that are not reflexive with a reflexive pronoun. You had good example. Dopo mi faccio la colazione. Later I'll make myself breakfast. That me is a reflexive pronoun. But in case you're not sure, I'll say the same thing about him. So, dopo si fa la colazione. Dopo lui si fa la colazione. After or later, he's going to make himself breakfast. So yes, it's reflexive. But fare is not reflexive. Right? Another example. Well, I got more examples in my head, okay? Allora, ci compriamo una casa. Ci compriamo una casa. That ci is reflexive because we're buying ourselves a house. But comprare is not reflexive, right? So here's the same sentence about them. Si comprano una casa. So yeah, it is. I'm using a reflexive pronoun for sure. So Terry, what do we do? Students, what do we do? Okay, so here's the solution. I'm going to highlight it because it's pretty big. Pretend reflexive verbs do not exist. I like to teach them like that almost. Go with the logics. So focus on what's logical. Who is the recipient of the verb? That is all. It comes down to this. You have a verb. There's a subject performing the verb in any sentence. And then there's got to be a recipient. I mean, that doesn't have to be a recipient, but there is a recipient. Okay, so usually what you learn is that to replace a recipient of a verb, you need an indirect object pronoun. That is correct, because the indirect object pronoun is the pronoun that receives the object of the verb. But what is a reflexive verb? When I say mi faccio un panino, who's the recipient of the sandwich? Moi, yes? So I am the recipient of the verb. So basically, this is not grammatically correct. You will not find anybody who teaches you this, but I like to teach you what works and in a way that you can finally get it right. I say finally because I know you struggle with reflexive verbs. Everybody. So when I say mi faccio un panino, it's about making a panino. Now, if I was making it for you, I will use an indirect object pronoun and I would say ti faccio un panino. I'll make you a sandwich. If I was making it to him, I would say gli faccio un panino with the indirect pronoun. If I was making it for her, le faccio un panino. I'm making her a sandwich because they're the recipient of the panino. When I am the recipient, why do I switch to a reflexive pronoun? It's because the subject and the recipient are the same. When I say mi faccio un panino, who's the subject of the verb? Io. Io faccio un panino for whom? For me. So the recipient is the same as the subject. So mi faccio un panino, that me is reflexive. Now, that me also looks the same as the indirect pronoun, so you can't say it. Let's go to the third person, which is when you say it. Le faccio un panino. I make her a sandwich because le faccio un panino. I'm going to write it actually. Le faccio un panino. Oopsie. Le faccio un panino. So that le is the indirect object pronoun because she's the recipient of my making of the sandwich. I make the sandwich, she gets it. So we need the indirect pronoun. Now, let's say that she is making herself un panino. That's what happens, right? So, sorry, that's not what happens. But fa un panino, that's when she makes it, right? Lei fa un panino, she makes a sandwich. But if she makes it for me, then lei mi fa un panino, that me being indirect pronoun because I'm getting the panino. If she's making the panino for you, that ti is the indirect pronoun because you are getting the panino, she's making it. But if she makes it and she gets it, I cannot use the indirect pronoun because the subject and the recipient are the same. Then I use the reflexive pronoun. Lei si fa un panino. It's basically the same as English. I know I spent like 5 minutes telling you something that sounds really complicated, but it's the same as English. I make you a sandwich. That you is the recipient, so indirect pronoun. I make her a sandwich. That's her, which is the indirect pronoun because she is getting something that I'm making. So io or I make her a sandwich. So same as in Italian. I make myself a sandwich. I'm using the reflexive pronoun in English because the subject and the recipient is the same. She makes me a sandwich, indirect. She makes you a sandwich, indirect. She makes herself a sandwich, reflexive. So go with logics. Did I just change your world? I hope I did. Actually, no, because Terry, you are a student of my course, so that's how I teach it, but I hope this helped you digest it a little bit better. Ok, grazie mille a tutti che avete guardato questo video, spero di avervi aiutato con i pronomi riflessivi e questo casino. Ci vediamo nella prossima risposta di Ask Manu versione Italministi Academy. Ciao ciao!